everyone. My name is Lonnie. I am Lady Braven of the Pride, and I am passionate about inspiring, encouraging, and empowering people to be brave during this time of government corruption and medical fraud. Today, I have one of the authors or collaborators on one of the chapters in The Brave, Speaking Truth to Power. I have Chris Vandenbos with Police on Guard. He is one of the founders and one of the directors of Police on Guard. And we're going to be talking about Police on Guard and where they're at with everything going on in the world. And we're also going to be talking about Chris's experience in Ottawa over the last couple of months. And in addition to that, we're going to talk about a court case that they currently have going with the government of Canada, among other names. So to start off, I would just like to read I'm going to read the first paragraph from their chapter in Speaking Truth to Power. It is called, it's chapter number 12, and it's called Breaking Ranks. Police on Guard was formed in December of 2020. But many of us feel as though we have been a part of this organization since before its inception. A common theme when speaking to members is that they often feel they are outliers within their services. They are and always have been the officer who is with an opinion, the officer who speaks out, and the officer who is willing to take a stand for what they believe in. Police on Guard have always been there with these individual members and their ideals across this great nation. Only now have we come together as one voice. All right, so Police on Guard started in December of 2020, and you were one of the original founders. Chris Vandenbos, can you tell us a little bit of how you came up with the concept for Police on Guard and why it was so important to you to start this organization?
Police on Guard, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me, Lanny. It's a pleasure to be here and getting an opportunity to speak about Police on Guard. Police on Guard is not a novel idea. Police on Guard is born out of the oath that we took. It's nothing that is, that should be foreign to officers in this country. Because when we took our positions as police constables, we took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the Charter of Rights and Freedoms of Canadians. Right, that we are going to do everything within our power when we put on that uniform, we put the badge in our pocket and the gun in our hip, strap on the Kevlar and take out a police cruiser, that we're going to make sure that we keep the peace, we prevent offenses, and that we uphold the laws of the land. But first and foremost, that we make sure that we don't violate the Charter and that we make sure that the Canadian public is protected against egregious breaches against their rights, whether it be from their neighbor, whether it be from their government, whether it be from police. It doesn't matter. That Charter is there to protect them. And when we took the oath, when we interviewed to become a police officer, they ask us ethics questions. And that is something that every officer, whether you agree with what we're doing or not, you can agree with this. You were all asked an ethics question. And if you weren't, I don't know why they overlooked that in the interview, because 99% of the time they asked this. They asked, what would you do in a situation if you observed another officer breaking the law and you were party to witnessing it? They asked, how would you handle the situation? And if during the course of answering that question, you allude to the fact that you would turn a blind eye or you would ignore that it's happening or that you would be complicit in this, they wouldn't hire you because you don't have the moral fiber to do the job the way that the oath outlines. And now COVID hits, and what caused me to get off my seat was seeing these breaches happening more and more, and the tip of the iceberg essentially was the incident in Calgary, which I've spoken about in almost every interview. And that was with a young man who was not wearing a mask, and it was in Calgary, and the police showed up and they weren't supposed to be there. And, it resulted in him getting physically taken down. They're cursing and swearing at him. They're kneeing him. They take him down. They hog tie him. They cut his skates off. They throw him in the back of the police cruiser.
Yeah, this was the incident on the ice rink in Calgary, the guy that got arrested for not wearing a mask on an ice rink?
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Yeah.
So that was kind of the the tip of the iceberg, and I just had enough. I thought, like, and I think it's important to also note for people, when it comes to feeling empowered and doing the right thing, you don't have to be in a highly esteemed position or a supervisory position of influence. Like, I'm a broken down cop. I have been through a lot in my career. I've seen a lot of stuff that caused devastation to me mentally and emotionally. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. And I've battled with PTSD for a long time. And at that point, I was still struggling mightily with the traumas of the career that I had, engaged in since 2005. And I kept telling myself, like, what are you going to do? Who's going to listen to you? You're a broken down cop with PTSD, and who's going to care about your voice? And it was always that cyclical rolling through my mind of, what can you actually do? And I was talking with my wife, and I was kind of, complaining about everything that's happening because it was directly violating the oaths that we took watching these officers act this way. Finally, she said, listen, Chris, I love you, but you need to either shut up about it or you need to do something about it, because sitting here and just talking about it to me is not affecting any change. So I started making phone calls, and from there I was connected with another officer who was just as, perturbed by everything that was going on. And we didn't know each other, but we were linked up together. And we decided to write an open letter. And that open letter was resulting from that incident in Calgary. And more officers saw the open letter on Facebook, and they joined on. And it was a God-led thing in my mind, because we started getting connected with people of all different skill sets that were in agreement with our position on this. And they have all kinds of technical skills and backgrounds in investigating. And here's the kicker to it all. I understand in the beginning, and I think we all do, that when the pandemic started in March of 2020, that, it was new, it was scary, we didn't know what was happening. So we all just kind of did our part and 2 weeks to flatten the curve, but then that turned into 2 months, and then it turned into, governmental overreaches. And what immediately stood out to me, and Canadians need to know this, that if you're going to arbitrarily remove the rights and freedoms of the Canadian public, you have to invoke Section 33 of the Charter, which is the notwithstanding clause, and you have to outline why and for how long. And it has to be through the proper judicial process. And that never happened. And that caused me to start to say to myself, why are they not going about the right the right process to handle this pandemic? And as officers, and I'm not the top-notch investigator that, I'm a good investigator. I was a great road investigator. I had received a lot of commendations for the work that I did, because I always approached policing on a common sense basis. How am I going to handle an investigation? Well, first and foremost, it's very common sense. You're going to have people that might give you their side of the story, but evidence should back up what you're observing and hearing, so that you can gain what's called reasonable and probable grounds. And if you have reasonable and probable grounds to believe, and the litmus test for that is what would cause an ordinary, cautious, and prudent person to believe that an offense has been committed. So they ask you when you're in training, who is somebody that you would say is ordinary, cautious, and prudent in your life? And every time you're encountering a situation to investigate something, ask yourself, if they were standing there with you, what would their kind of end result be in terms of what occurred? And you use that as a bit of a guide, and you use that backed by the Charter to make sure you're doing your job properly and advocating the laws properly. And, and we're held to a higher standard. And if you don't do it the right way, if you don't live up to the Charter and the Constitution, and you're not, just going, or if you are going out there and just acting as a bit of a bully, you get called to the carpet, and it's not pretty. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and all this was going on, and it seemed like a blind eye was being turned to all this. And I'm like, what shifted here? What happened here in Canada? Because to back up my suspicions that something was awry was seeing doctors coming forward, scientists coming forward, speaking about their concerns about the science and the data collection and the tests themselves, and the way that they were going about implementing these lockdowns and these COVID measures and mandates. And they were just simply saying that they felt something was off, and they were getting censored. They were getting delicensed, and then you see pastors who are parishioners of congregations trying to go out and do their heavenly calling to help out their communities, to feed the homeless, to be a place of refuge and safety for those that are hurting, for those that have lost loved ones, for those that are dealing with depression, who are dealing with substance abuse issues, whatever it is, that run the gamut. The church should have been and should always be a place for them to go to find safety and to find comfort and to find fellowship with those that can lift them up when they're down. And these pastors were getting arrested and thrown in jail and held in jail in Canada. Like, here's a stat, and I haven't researched it to make sure that it's 100% true, but I've heard enough people say it that are within the Christian community and other religious groups, that Canada has incarcerated more pastors throughout COVID than China. And if that is in fact true, that's appalling. That's abhorrent, you know, that these pastors are getting arrested for just trying to be a shepherd to the flock and to be a light in a dark world, and couple that with everything else. Something seemed off as a cop trying to base everything on a common sense approach to investigations. And what we found was that there was quite a few officers that agreed with us, and we grew in numbers, and we've continued to grow in numbers. And, you know, and now we're in the thousands of people that are, you know, either active or retired or former because they left policing due to what was going on. Police officers, military, firefighters, and
in the
security
thousands.
guards. Oh yeah, like we've grown quite a bit, and the support we're getting from the public is incredible, because people are also now starting to realize, or have realized through the course of the last 2 years, that this doesn't make sense when a government tells its people to shut up, don't ask questions, do as you're told, ignore what other people are saying, don't have dialogue, be divisive towards your fellow man, and the law no longer applies, and the rule of the charter being applied through the actions of police is no longer relevant. And I think it's disturbing to people, and that's why they look for resources that can help them, and that's why Police on Guard is here, and that's why we're doing well, is because, like, we're not political. We don't have a political party that we align with. We approach the organization of Police on Guard the same way we would as a frontline officer or a police officer in any capacity. And that is to be unbiased and to take in all the information, take in the evidence, and to base your final resolution or understanding of what's happening based on that, not just what you're told. And this is Canada, and we're supposed to be a democratic country. Part of a democracy is having dialogue. It's having conversation. It's not saying you're wrong, I'm right, don't care what evidence you have, shut up, and if you don't agree with me, you're a pariah. That's not how this works. You're supposed to be able to have dialogue. And if scientists and doctors have some information that is contrary to the mainstream narrative, they should be allowed to express that, because what comes with that is informed consent. Then you, as the end user, get to hear what they have to say, hear what the government has to say, and make a decision for yourself based on the evidence that's presented and what seems the most logical, and what would cause that ordinary, cautious, and prudent person to believe that something is going on or not. So that's been silenced, that's been stopped, and it seems like our democratic rights have been arbitrarily removed on a variety of different levels, and it's disturbing. It's disturbing not just to us, but I think it's disturbing to a lot of Canadians.
Yes. Well, I mean, the last time we spoke, we had an interview, and I think that it's become quite evident over the past 3/4 of a year that this isn't a political issue. It's not a judicial issue. It's not even a medical issue. I mean, what's happening on the overall picture, it really feels like a spiritual war. It feels like the light against the dark forces. And I'm just really grateful, and I'm really, I feel that Canada is really fortunate that the Police on Guard have stepped up, and they have presented themselves as remaining true to their oath and standing up for all of our charter rights and our freedoms. Because in this climate, with everything going on, you just don't know who to trust anymore. It's hard to trust people in the medical system. It's hard to trust police officers in general, unless they're coming forward and they're speaking their truth to power, and they're standing up and saying, actually, I'm with Police on Guard, and Police on Guard for thee, and we're staying true to the oath. And everything that you just said is assuring for so many people to hear this, to know that you guys are out there, and you guys are standing up, and you guys are speaking out. And in order for you to do that, I'm sure that you've had to make a lot of sacrifices. Like you said, there are a lot of active and retired police officers. I'm sure that a lot of them have stepped away from their career, like I did, because of everything going on. So yeah, I actually wanted to read, it takes a lot of bravery, it takes a lot of courage to make the stand and to use your voice in the way that you guys have done that. And I just wanted to read one more small portion of this chapter, this is a great chapter for anybody that wants it's some empowerment to find their voice, to stand up and to speak out. That's what the whole entire book is about. These are 20 different voices, some of the loudest voices across the country that are countering the mainstream media narrative and holding those people in positions of power accountable for their crimes against humanity. There are some really strong voices in this book, and I highly recommend that you go out and get this book. Police on Guard is chapter number 12. And I'm going to read another little small portion of this chapter because I want to talk about it. Okay. And this chapter was a collaborative effort. It was written by a number of the Police on Guard, a number of the directors. There's no sugarcoating it. Standing up for the truth and speaking out requires concrete moral conviction. In a word, bravery. One must have a solid understanding of what they stand for and the reprisals they face for voicing their opinions. If someone who speaks out is struggling to find their voice or experiencing trepidation, connecting with other strong-willed individuals with similar views is a good starting point, and I highly, highly agree with that. As mentioned earlier, Police on Guard was a joining of like-minded people within the ranks of policing. Without each other, we are merely individuals, but together with our minds working as one, we are an army. When people who share similar values come together and act as one voice, the results are extremely powerful. This is proven to be true throughout this pandemic as groups from different countries, career paths, and walks of life that are fighting for truth and human rights continue to form and grow. And I think that's a really powerful statement to make because it's so true that when we come together and we unify our voices, we have so much more strength and power behind when we stand as a group. And when you as Police on Guard stand as a group, you said that you're in the thousands now. I mean, how powerful is that? And how reassuring is it for the communities and for the people to know that there's a very large group of Canadian police officers, active and retired, that have their back, and that the police are not the enemy, and that the police can be trusted, and that the police are staying true to their oath. So I thank you again. I'm always so grateful that Police on Guard is out there. And for police officers in the local communities here that are interested in joining their voice, how do they go about doing that?
Go to policeonguard.ca and you can click under members and you can join. And what happens is you go through a vetting process. We have people that make sure that you are vetted to make sure that you are either actively or had formally served and taken an oath. And from there, then we welcome you in and you can join our community, and you'll find others of like mind that are just sharing information. And it's important to note, like for anybody that's listening, like this isn't an extreme group. You know, like the media has done whatever they can to discredit what it is that we're doing. And that's fine. We know that Justin Trudeau admitted to paying them $650 million and he arrogantly laughed it off for the media to parrot exactly what it is that he wants them to say. And that's not conspiracy theory, folks. You can find the videos. It's very easy to find. But simply put, we're just trying to advocate for the rights and freedoms of our fellow Canadians, and to stand for the oath that we took, and get officers to remember that the oath was not to a politician. You did not take an oath saying that I swear to uphold whatever Justin Trudeau says I should do, or Doug Ford, or Bonnie Henry, or whoever. It is to uphold the Constitution and the Charter, and to make sure that you are keeping the peace and preventing offenses. And I get people will argue, they'll say, well, hold on a second, preventing offenses. Well, if you breach these COVID mandates, that's an offense, and their officer's job is to enforce it. Yes, but there's a caveat to that, and it is that you shall first and foremost uphold the Charter. And if the Charter has not been suspended, all laws are first and foremost subjected to the Charter. And the officer does not get to decide this law gets to go outside the confines of what that precious document states, because that document was it was instated in 1982, and the last surviving signator and an author of the charter, Brian Peckford, is alive and well still, and it is fighting through court battles and through public addresses and interviews to try to get people to realize it's not a historical document that has been thrown up on a wall to be looked at and say, oh, remember when that existed? It's still here. It is still in place, and it shall be adhered to. Shall be adhered to. If I were to go and arrest somebody, and in the process of arresting that person, I rough them up without them giving any justifiable reason for me to do so, like they're non-combative, they're compliant, and I just decide to start beating the crap out of somebody, and then I don't let them talk to a lawyer, doesn't matter what offense they committed, when that goes to court, the first thing that's going to come up is that Constable Vandenbos beat up my client and refused to let him talk to a lawyer, contrary to the charter. There's a charter breaches right there. That court case gets tossed 99 times out of 100. You know, so this is so correlatable. It's like all we're trying to do is to convey the message to our fellow Canadians and to our fellow officers. We are not extreme. We're just asking that everyone holds their government to account for the fact that they have egregiously breached the Charter of Rights and Freedoms of all Canadians. You can be on either side of this debate. That's fine. I respect your opinions or your beliefs on COVID. I'm not going to get into the merits of that because you know what? That's not my wheelhouse. But what is my wheelhouse is the response to it was a violation of the Charter. The response to COVID and these mandates and telling somebody that you have a choice. No, it's your choice. You don't have to take this medical intervention. You don't have to. But if you don't get to go to work. You lose your job. You're put on unpaid leave. You don't get to leave the country. We have Canadians leaving Canada for freedom. That should be alarming to all Canadians. Yeah. I don't care what side of the debate you're on this. If that doesn't raise your eyebrow and make you go, what the heck is going on top of the pastors being arrested I mentioned, and doctors and scientists getting silenced, and officers getting charged for making videos saying that they stand for their oath. That is what we took at the beginning of our careers, and now somewhere along the line that gets dismissed. And this is what we need to be unified on. No more division. We can't be hating each other over nonsense. That's playing into this. We need to remember that we're all here, we're all Canadian, we all have the same rights, we need to respect each other, and we need to make sure that our rights are maintained. And that's what Police on Guard is all about. And we have court cases that are hopefully going to bring clarification to that.
I was just going to ask about that.
Yeah, feel free.
The court case, can you give a little bit of a background and the details about the court case and where it's at right now?
So the court cases, we have two. One is the Ontario action, and that is a combination of active and retired officers, 19 of us, represented by Rocco Galletti of the Constitutional Rights Center. And we're just seeking declaratory relief surrounding the implementation of these mandates and how the government has responded to COVID and the direction that they've given police officers, because we put in our letter that it put us in an untenable position, because when you're asking us, as I mentioned, to violate our oath, it falls on us. Like, officers need to realize through G20, through all these other instances through the past, if you look through history, hindsight's 2020, you say when you're called to the carpet, well, I was given direction to go and arrest that person for being outside peacefully assembling, or going into somebody's home and arresting somebody for not living there during a lockdown. When the dust settles on this, just being told to do it and following orders has never been an excuse, and it will never be an excuse. And you're opening yourself up to civil and personal liability. So that's an untenable position for an officer to be placed in. So we want declaratory relief from the courts, and that's why we're seeking it, to be able to say definitively, this is what still stands. And the charter and the oath to uphold it still stands. And you cannot just go arbitrarily avoiding your duties by doing it in an improper way. Like you can't just violate people's charter rights. So that's what we're trying to do with the Ontario application. And then the federal application that is currently underway as well is in regards to the federal employees being mandated to take the inoculations, and if not, lose their jobs and stuff. And also surrounding like border crossings and everything, like being told that you cannot engage in activities that you are guaranteed by the charter to be able to engage in is therefore a violation. And we're trying to get the courts to give some answers on that. So there has been some setbacks, unfortunately, due to some medical issues with our attorney, but we have great confidence in the fact that he's going to rebound, and we're still moving forward. Like we're not going to stop moving forward on this
I
because
have
it
no
is
doubt.
absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, a lot of, I got this light in my eye. A lot has happened over the last like 6 to 8 months with the convoy in the last couple months from February and March. You went down to Ottawa and you shared your voice there as well. And you were also doing lives on Instagram that I was following almost on a daily basis. Was following probably about 5 or 6 people, and you were one of the people that I was following. It was such an emotional time, and it was also a very inspirational time. Like I feel like the convoy really started to give people hope that there was going to be change, and that people were going to start being held accountable. I don't know if that necessarily happened, but what was your experience?
Well, my experience was when I heard of this convoy starting out in BC and moving its way across the country. This is pretty unique. This is pretty incredible. A bunch of people who are in disagreement on what's happening are taking a peaceful stand. So naturally, I wanted to keep my finger on that pulse to figure out, all the updates on what's going on, and are they growing? Are they dwindling? It's like, to me, I was reluctantly hesitant to believe that anything would come of it. It's like the wave at a Blue Jays game. Everyone's like, wow, put their hands up and it's going around. And by the time it hits a second, you see it starts to dwindle, and then people just go back and sit down. And I was hoping that that wouldn't be the case. And so I was following along on Zello and listening to their CB back and forth conversations and inspirational messages and updates and stuff. And it was like, oh my goodness, boys and girls, we're a kilometer long. And then it was, oh my goodness, we're 7 kilometers long. And the next thing you know, is like they're entering one province and they still haven't left the other. And it's like, wow, this is huge. And then you start seeing the media pushback and the governmental pushback. And when our prime minister, and I use that term loosely, mind you, made the assertion that this is a group of fringe minority people holding unacceptable views, I thought, I got to get down there. Because as a copper alone, just based on my my inclination to want to get to the bottom of truth, I thought, I'm going to go and observe and report. I want to make sure that I'm putting out the truth of what's going on. And if it goes sideways, I'll report on that. I'll update people on that and encourage people to remain peaceful, right? Because I'm a peaceful guy to begin with. And I wanted to make sure that I saw things with my own eyes to dispel any misinformation that was going on. And I was there before they arrived, so I could be there when they arrived. And when they arrived, it was the most overwhelming experience. And I should say before that, on the drive down there, I was with the convoy driving with them up until Kingston. And then I continued, and they were bedding down there for the night. I got to Ottawa ahead of them because they were then going to depart the next day. And every overpass from Cambridge all the way to Ottawa not only had people on the overpasses, but on the berms leading up to the overpasses. And some of the overpasses were like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So I got on the horn with my buddy and my brother, who was at the Vaughan Mills Mall location here in Ontario, which is just north of Toronto. And it was hilarious. Media shows up and they're talking about the convoys, and they're showing a few straggler people, off in the distance as they're reporting, pointing the camera at the journalist. And they're trying to make it out to seem like it was, again, a fringe minority group of people holding unacceptable views. Meanwhile, one of the guys was recording with his cell phone, and he turns it around to show the amount of people that were actually there. And Vaughan Mills parking lot, which is one of the biggest malls in Canada next to the West Edmonton, was packed full of people. And I mean, like, tens of thousands of people standing there holding signs saying mandate freedom, end the mandates, we stand united, love and unity. And then the media reports on it being a hostile group of angry Canadians that are, harboring these extreme ideologies. And I was like, come on, like, Canada, wake up. If you're not awake to what's going on here, I hope you get out of your house, turn off the mainstream, lamestream news, and go and see for yourself what's going on. So when I got to Ottawa and they all arrived, I did a walk around that morning, and it was incredible. There was people of every walk of life, every ethnic background, every, orientation. Like there was different flags of all kinds being flown, LGBTQ flags, as well as flags of people from their home countries, as well as flags saying F Trudeau, which obviously put his nose out of joint, but rightfully so. And all the different flags saying peace, love, unity, and the mandates. So I stuck around to make sure I could see what the temperature was going to be. Was it going to maintain this, or was it going to get ugly? And every single day I went, it was nothing but peace, love, and unity. I had never had so many hugs given to me in a period of time. Like the hug per capita per day, right? Like was in the hundreds, to the point that I actually wore the seam out of my coat. I don't know if you saw my sheepskin coat that I was wearing down there. I
Yeah.
wore the seam out of the elbow of my coat from hugging people so many times that it actually started
Oh,
popping the stitches out. And I'm telling you, like the one opportunity I had, which was awesome, I was in the one hotel lobby getting warm because it was cold. And this group of people came up to me. It was three families, and they were from Iran, and they had escaped tyranny back in their home country years ago, and they came to Canada for freedom and peace. And they were holding signs saying peace, love, unity, mandate freedom, and everything else. And I had a half-hour conversation with them, and it was incredible to hear their side of the story and to hear that their community stands behind them.
mhm.
And the one thing that they said at the end that really stuck with me is, if there's one thing that is true, is that we are far from a fringe minority. We're willing to overlook all differences of, between us and our fellow man to come together for freedom. And I started tearing up and crying. And sometimes I'm a little bit prone to tearing up easy with stuff like that, but it moved me, and it really made me realize just how diverse this group of people are that are coming together to stand for freedom, to stand for ethics, to stand for morals and what's right, and to not be divided over this incredibly
Right.
stupid issue. And it maintained. And even when the police finally came in after the Emergency Act was brought forward, which was unbelievably ridiculous, that they would bring the Emergencies Act into place, and the politicians just voted in support in the House for a group of people. There was, and I can tell you this from first person testimony, homeless people were not being treated poorly. Homeless people were being brought into the makeshift shelters that the truckers had assembled, and they were given warmth, they were given food, they were given clothing. I saw a trucker take his personal coat off and put it over the back of a guy that was sitting on the street holding a sign and a can saying help, need food. Like they were going out of their way to be benevolent, to help people. And they were cleaning up storefronts, they were shoveling sidewalks, they organized that all the trash goes to one location for easy pickup. Like it was the most harmonious, peaceful time I had ever seen. And
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 that's what
and
I
then
witnessed.
yeah. And then
Mhm.
at the end, the police come in, and you have horses charging towards a crowd of people. I'm not a mounted officer, never have been, but I can guarantee you that that's not within their mandate to charge towards a peaceful gathering crowd of people
Mhm.
with your massive horses and trampling them. I
Yeah.
can guarantee you that at no point has it ever been acceptable to take a law-abiding citizen who's peacefully gathering, which is a protected right under the charter, by the way, and getting butt stroked with a rifle after getting taken to the ground, and getting kneed. Another individual, a former veteran who has been injured fighting for this country, getting taken to the ground, thrown to the ground, and kneed in the ribs and beaten senseless. Like if that sits well with you, if
Mhm.
that sits well with anybody, then I am completely flabbergasted with
Mhm.
where your head is at.
Yeah.
Because if I'd have done that at any point throughout my career to somebody on the curbside, street side, when I was doing my job, I would expect to be called to the carpet and charged with assault.
Right.
Why was it okay there? There was nobody armed in the crowd. There was no threat to public safety from my observations, yet they made it out to look like, and the media was complicit in this. And I just hope that it all comes out in the wash and everyone that is responsible is held to account, because it
Absolutely.
was disturbing to witness. And if that's what we want Canada to turn into, then it's no wonder why people are leaving this country right now.
Yeah.
And it's scary.
Yeah, I mean, that was an emotional roller coaster to watch all of that happen. First of all, as everybody was heading down to Ottawa, I was so jealous. I wanted to be there. I wanted to feel that energy. I wanted to be proud of my country and all of the people who were standing up, all of the people who were being brave. I just wanted to thank them for speaking out and standing up and even showing up at the side of the road to support all of the truckers on the convoy. And then, like you said, watching people throughout the first couple of weeks, how they were supporting everyone. They were cleaning up the streets, they were shoveling snow, they were, helping exactly as you described. That is what I witnessed because I was watching every day a number of different perspectives of people who were on the front lines, who were on the ground there in Ottawa, and they were sharing the truth of what was happening, which was pretty much the opposite of what the mainstream media was portraying. So it was an emotional roller coaster, and then to watch everybody stand face to face with those officers on that line and just trying to get through to them on a soul level, trying to connect with their humanity. That was really difficult to watch, actually, because there were like, in particular, I was thinking about Kristen Nagel, how she was like just trying from the standpoint of a mother, just trying to reach some of those officers and trying to connect with them on a deeper level and make eye contact with them and trying to even get them to even respond in any way. And it was so difficult to watch how stone cold they had been programmed to be and how, they weren't budging and they weren't like, do you have any personal experience or knowledge of any officers that kind of switched, that said, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to stand against the people. I'm going to stand with the people. Do you have any knowledge of that happening?
Well, I can give you a little bit of an insight. So how it works, at least with the police service that I know of, is they got paid, time and a half essentially, which is the paid duty rate, quote unquote, which is, overtime in a sense, to go there. So they're getting incentivized by getting paid handsomely. And if I don't know if anybody who's watching this saw the chat, the signal chat, I believe it was, between the RCMP officers that were on scene. They were bragging about how they were getting paid so much money and they can't wait to bring their jackboots out and stomp on people. And like it was just they were gloating about the fact that they're getting to stomp on Canadians, and they're taking pictures of themselves fine dining in the One Chateau Hotel. And to me, it made me sick to the pit of my stomach. And then one level further, I will say, is there was one staff sergeant down in Niagara who was a part of a social media thread where the one individual who was the head of Clifton Hill Security was saying, let's bust out the tear gas on these people. And this staff sergeant publicly responds saying, booyah, mother effer, like totally on board with this egregious stomping of the people's rights and physically injuring them. And to me, I don't know anybody personally that went there or would go, other than a couple that I guess I was acquaintances with. And I called them out. I texted them and I said, like, what are you doing? But the other officers that I know, family included, because we're a policing family, my brother stepped down. He left. He's like, and he sent an email to the chief and to all the people that work for the organization saying why. And it was directly stemming from this. And I have other friends that have resigned from policing because of the climate of what policing has become, and that it is a direct violation of the oath they took, and they can't in good conscience put on their blues and go do the job anymore. And that, again, on top of Canadians leaving, that should be concerning to Canadians. Yeah. The good cops are saying, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Like that's impactful. That is relevant, and that should be alarming. Yeah. And when the dust settles on this, and I just pray to God that it does soon, that anyone who willingly went forward and stomped on fellow Canadians' Charter of Rights and Freedoms, there needs to be accountability for that. But what are we getting? We're getting constables like Erin Howard from Durham, who makes a video saying that she stands for the charter and she agrees with what the truckers are doing because they're doing it peacefully, she's getting called to the carpet and raked over the coals and charged, and they're going at her with both barrels. And you got Niagara officers as well who made 10-second videos just saying, I support freedom and a return to normal. And they're getting charged.
They're getting
Is this
charged.
clown work?
What?
Under the Police Services Act.
Okay, hold on one second. Okay, you've used this term a number of times, called to the carpet. Okay, can you explain what that means for people who don't know, including myself?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a saying that I use, which basically means that you're getting called to stand before your policing authorities to answer for something you've done. And throughout the course of your career, you make a boo-boo. Yeah, rightfully so. You got to answer for it because that's what accountability in policing should be. That if you step out of line, that you have to answer for it. And if you're found to be guilty of doing something wrong, then you're consequenced. And now they're getting called to the carpet to answer for making videos that essentially say they're standing for the oath that they took when they commenced employment as an officer. And that's so backwards to me. And what we need when it comes to police on guard, and you mentioned, that it's incredible what we're doing, and I thank you for that. But the reality is this: we are nothing if we don't have support.
Right.
We're nothing if Canadians don't say, these cops are doing the right thing. They're trying to help. We need to get behind them, and we need to be vocal, and we need to go to our MPs and our MPPs, and we need to make our voices heard. We need to know the charter, and we need to stand for what the charter represents and use the charter to our advantage to make sure that we are protected. And if we get stomped on, then you go right on ahead and you start filing court applications and lawsuits, because the only way out of this is a unified, peaceful resistance.
Right.
Not one that's extreme, not one that is going to bring tumult and further, because we all know the media twists things. If you give them anything, they'll abuse it, they'll use it, they'll twist it, and next thing you know, it's something that it's not. Know your rights, know the law, but stand with us. Stand up for this country, stand up for our freedom. Do it peacefully, do it legally, but stand.
Right.
Turn off your Netflix and your mainstream news and stop binging on garbage and start looking what's actually happening. Start asking important questions of yourself and those that are elected to represent you and those that were appointed to protect you. Ask the tough questions. It's important now more than ever.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to go back to one of the things you said about the officers getting incentivized and getting paid time and a half to do what they were doing, and then their mindset and their approach towards their work after doing that. I worked in the TV and film industry for 20 years, and I know what happens to people when they get incentivized to behave in a certain way. I mean, in my mind, this is the premise behind Hollywood and celebrities. They get paid a lot of money to influence other people, influence the masses. This is the whole purpose of a celebrity, is to influence the mindset and psychologically control the masses of people, control what they think, what they buy, who they vote for. So I feel like when people sell their soul for fortune and fame, that essentially anytime people are taking money to behave in a certain way or to have a certain effect on other people, they're selling their soul. Do you feel like people sold their soul when they got paid time and a half? I mean, now we're talking about spiritual warfare, but.
Well, I mean, on a basic and fundamental level, to me, we do pay duties, right? We get funeral escort details, we get traffic direction, we get prisoner guard details if they're at the hospital and they need, somebody to watch them that's still awaiting court. Like we get paid duty, weddings, security, dances for high schools. Like we get paid duty opportunities all the time. And in the description, it outlines what the pay duty is, and you decide if you want to sign up for it. And then based on how many hours you have as a pay duty officer, the one with the least amount of hours gets it. In this particular case, if you had been watching at all for the last 3 weeks of what had been going on before that pay duty was brought in, or in some cases they were just directed to go maybe without it being a pay duty, we're always challenged to ask what the grounds are for us to apply force and our duties, and we're supposed to independently gather the information to make sure that we're doing our job according to law. And I don't know what justification there was for responding the way that the officers that did. I don't know what justification there was to justify that. As far as the question of selling their soul, I can't speak to what's inside any person's heart because I don't know. I don't have that intrinsic view to see. But what I can say is for me, I would not have been able to do what was done there. I would not have been able to accept that direction. I would have gladly taken an insubordination charge to not move forward with that. And I know a lot of officers refused and they backed away from it because they couldn't do it, but others were more than willing apparently. And you know, there's going to come a time when this all unfolds, just like after G20, where the hard questions are asked and the evidence is brought forward. And like I said, just saying I was following orders is not going to be a good enough excuse. You know, it troubled me to my core to see what happened there. Because I got to know the truckers and the people there. I went down the line of trucks and spoke one-on-one with almost all of them that I could that were there and present, and the people that were in attendance. And I didn't meet one person that was racist. I didn't meet one person that was hate-filled. I didn't meet one single person that had any extreme ideologies. All they wanted to do was bring peace and unity back to Canada and freedom. That was it. In a nutshell, you want to wrap it all up? There it is. Put the bow on it. That's all they were after. And it was disgusting to me how they were conveyed and how they were responded to.
Right. So you didn't meet one peaceful protester that had a negative view, but did you meet any officers on the front lines there that was behaving in the way that, like in those text messages, like with a really negative attitude?
Oh, day two, when everyone was arriving, I was walking towards Wellington. And I saw this guy standing beside a police cruiser trying to talk to the officer. I don't know the nature of the conversation. I was about 20 feet away when I witnessed this. But what I did see, clear as day, because it was daylight and I got 20/20 vision, was the officer opening the door as quickly as he could and smash the guy in the head with his car door. The guy stumbles back. The officer gets out, acting like a big man, and starts stepping forward and puffing his chest out. And this guy, rightfully so, was ticked off. He was just assaulted with the car door just for trying to talk to the officer. So I stepped in right away in between them and I put my back to the officer and I faced the gentleman that was hit in the head with the car door. And he was irate. And I said, listen, I get you're mad. I get what just happened is wrong. But if you respond, it's going to be on the news and they're going to try to make it look like something that you started. So take his name, take his badge number, and file a complaint. Here's my details. I'll back up your complaint as a witness. Don't do it here. And don't do it this way. And he took a deep breath. He's like, okay, yeah, you're right. Sorry, man. I'm like, don't be sorry. What happened was wrong. It was absolutely disgusting. And I said, as I turned to the officer, I said, it was absolutely disgusting. And he just looked at me all pissed off faced. And that's fine. He's got to look at himself in the mirror. But it begs the question, like, why did you become a cop?
Right.
Was it to get your licks in on people because you were wrong once upon a time? Or did you get on the job to do the right thing when nobody's looking? And in that case, there was a lot of people looking and you did the wrong thing. So I hope that officer gets called to the carpet, and I hope that he's held to account, and the others as well that did what they did at the end of it all, because it was so un-Canadian. It was so just abhorrent to witness.
Right.
And but what I loved about it, there's always a silver lining that even through all of that, the people still remained peaceful. They didn't respond. They didn't buy in. And it looks so bad on the politicians and the officers that were directed to do that. You know, thank goodness the people had the resolve.
Yeah. And yeah, it was really hard to watch. I feel like it had to play out the way that it did, though. And at the end of the day, so what was the result of the convoy from your perspective in Ottawa? What was the result?
Well, you can only ever really gauge it from your own perspective, from your own arena. I can say that everyone that I've spoken to in my community, in my friendship networks, and my family, I mean, there's always debate, there's argument. Like I heard somebody saying, well, these truckers were a bunch of, you know, as Doug Ford termed them, yahoos, you know, referring to people that disagrees with them and everything else. But it generated conversation. The truckers generated conversation. And from that conversation, creates an opportunity to shed the real light on what occurred. And in my town here where I'm living, it went from, people seemingly all asleep to now I'm seeing signs and flags everywhere
Mhm.
saying mandate freedom. Thank you, truckers. Like peaceful signs, no more lockdowns. Like everyone seems to be getting more engaged because they realize that this is wrong and it has been wrong. And maybe they thought they were alone on it, but the truckers made everybody realize that was questioning what's going on, that they're not alone. You're
Right.
not the only one who feels this way. And evidently there's millions of Canadians that agree that this needs to end and that this was wrong. And now the truckers help them find each other and give them a voice.
Right. Right. I think that the trucker convoy had a huge impact on the morale and the energy of the people. And for them to see that there is the small fringe minority isn't that small. And yeah, have you heard anything about the trucker convoy 2.0, like another one happening?
I've heard rumblings. I've heard that the bike enthusiasts are starting something called Rolling Thunder. I heard rumors of that. I think everyone that had a little bit more of a realistic view into what happened with the trucker convoy is wanting to do their part more now than ever, and they're really doing everything they can to create awareness. And it's there's a saying, and it's ironic that it was inside the walls of policing. They always put up these inspirational posters throughout the walls, and then they also have their mottos and their ethical principles, which they clearly are ignoring now. But one of the posters that I saw that really stuck with me was, sometimes all it takes is a couple of nuts to grow the strongest of oak trees.
Mhm.
And these truckers started to plant those nuts, those seeds, and they're growing, and people are starting to wake up and stand up and speak up, and that's what's needed right now more than ever.
Absolutely. And not just in Canada, the trucker convoy actually ignited a movement across the entire planet. And
Yeah, it
how
did.
amazing was that to watch? I just got chills. Like there's
Yeah.
things happening. Everybody is so ultra focused on all of the negative timelines and agendas and all of the corruption that's being exposed right now. Yes, it has to be exposed right now. The only way that we can move past the corruption is to shine a light on it. So I feel like we're in this transitional time right now where all of the darkness is being exposed so that we can dismantle the systems of control that are no longer working for us. And we can start to focus on the direction that we want to go, which is creation of a new system that works for us, a new paradigm, a new earth, um, a new way of doing things, a completely new way of doing things that is more focused on community and compassion and love and all of those higher vibrations of like the fifth dimension or whatever you want to call it. I believe in the good things coming. And I think that one of the things that Police on Guard, the trucker convoy, you and a lot of the people in my books, what we're doing, and this book, obviously speaking truth to power, what we're doing is we're calling upon courage. It's called the brave for a reason, and we're calling upon the individual's courage to find their voice, to stand up, to believe in the possibilities and the opportunities of what's coming, and to start to manifest their own future in the way that we all deserve and the way it should have been all along. So all of everything that's happening, everything that you've gone through and everything that you've done, it all has so much meaning and purpose, moving humanity, all of Canada and everybody forward by calling upon their own courage and showing them what it looks like to stand in your power and to speak out for something that you believe in. Yeah,
Yeah.
so the brave, courage during COVID. This is meant to activate the heart chakra. That's why it's green, calling upon your courage. This is the second book in the series. It's called The Brave Speaking Truth to Power, and it's supposed to help you find your throat chakra or activate your throat chakra and find your voice and your articulation, your personal expression, your creativity. And then this third book in the series is called The Brave Ascending Human Consciousness. And it's about our ability to heal from past trauma elevate our frequency, expand our awareness, wake up, activating the pineal gland. And then there is going to be a fourth book in the series. It's called The Brave Manifesting New Earth. And it's about all of these visions for the future and opportunities and possibilities that we should be focusing on, because we always want to focus on the direction that we want to go. Yes, it's important to look back and see everything that went wrong so that we can focus on what we want to go right. So there will be a fourth book in the series that will be out this year. And yeah, Chris, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience, specifically about being brave and speaking truth to power and Police on Guard and the growing community of like-minded voices that you've brought together?
Yeah, a couple things. I'll finish off with this. There is something else that's going to be brought forward soon. We started a whistleblowers campaign, and we had folks from within the walls of the medical health industry come forward to speak about their observations and the directions that they were given and things that they observed that were troubling to them. They did interviews with us, and they're almost ready for release. So hopefully that will help our fellow Canadians realize some of the other inconsistencies that were portrayed by our government in the media, and hear from a different perspective to make their own determination on what has been going on. And also to remember, like, again, I mentioned being a broken down cop, and that's essentially what I am, but that doesn't define me, and it doesn't limit me. And no matter who you are and where you come from, no matter what your background and experience, you can make a change that is positive. You can be impactful from your own arena. You don't have to second guess yourself and say, I'm alone. I use this kind of, I guess it would be an analogy to get people to realize where you're at. The media is like a fog, and through the last 2 years, it's like we've been sitting down in a field. And the media has you believing that if you have a differing opinion than the mainstream, that you're alone and you can't see anything. You feel like you're alone and surrounded by lies, and it's hard to know what's going on. And it's not until you stand up and get your head above that fog that you realize there's a lot of other people standing with you, and they are waking up and standing up and speaking up with you. You're not alone. We can do this, and we will do this. We just need to remember to lead with our hearts, lead with love. Hate doesn't lead to anything positive. Rid yourself of that burden and move forward in love, but in truth, and do it democratically and peacefully, but do it. Do it. We need to remember Canada's history here. We have a history, a very proud history of standing up and doing the right thing against all odds. Now is the time to do that again, and in a way that brings about a positive change, to be that change we want to see in the world. And I hope that doesn't sound cheesy or cliche. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Support us, stand with your fellow Canadians, ask the hard questions, have dialogue and conversation. It's not taboo, it's necessary. That's how we learn, that's how we grow. Let's do this. We have to do it now, because if this continues, Lord only knows where it's going to lead, and I fear that it might not be a very good place. So I'm really hoping and praying and doing everything that I can to bring about that change in a positive way. And I'm just hoping that we continue to get more and more support as we move along.
Thank you so much. I couldn't agree more with all of those words. You're so well spoken, and you have such positive and powerful wisdom to share. And I just really appreciate everything that you're doing and Police on Guard's presence. And yeah, I think it's really important that we all stand up and speak out and share our own individual truth and what we believe in at this time, because I actually believe in all of the good things coming. It's all about unifying our voices. So thank you very much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for coming on and having this conversation with me and sharing more about Police on Guard and everything that you're up to. Everyone, please like this video. Please share it with your friends that need a little bit of inspiration and encouragement through these times. And also, please subscribe to Lady Braven of the Pride, because we have courageous conversations every day. And as we all know, courage is contagious.